Hello everybody and welcome to chapter 47 of the book of Bereishit as we continue to travel through Tanach. Chapter 47 has 31 verses and it's found in the Koren Sachs Chumash on page 314 and 315. In this chapter, Yosef presents his brothers to Paro and then his father Yaakov to Paro as well. Yaakov actually blesses Paro twice in this chapter. The family is settled in the land of Goshen, where Yosef sustains them during the famine. As the famine worsens, Yosef implements an economic policy on the Egyptians. They exchange money, livestock, land, and eventually their labor for food. Paro becomes the sole landowner, although the priest's land remains untouched. And yet, whilst Egypt becomes increasingly centralized and dependent, Bnei Yisrael flourish and multiply and settle nicely in the land of Goshen. In this chapter, we will also read the end of Parshas Vayigash and the beginning of Parshas Vayichi, which commences with the realization that we are drawing near to the end of Yaakov's life. With that introduction in mind, let us turn to chapter 47, verse 1. Vayavo Yosef, vayaged leFaro. So Yosef went and told Pharaoh, Vayomer, and he said, Avi va'achai, my father and my brothers, v'tzonam uvkaram, with their flocks and their herds, v'chol asher lahem, and all that they have, ba'u me'eretz Canaan, have come from the land of Canaan, v'hinam be'eretz Goshen, and are now in the region of Goshen. Verse 2, Umiktzei echav lokach chamisha anashim. He chose 5 of his brothers, vayatzigem lifnei Pharaoh, and he presented them to Paro. And our rabbis point out that he picks 5 of his weakest brothers, so as not to intimidate Paro unnecessarily. Verse 3, Vayomer Paro el achav, and Paro said to the brothers, Ma ma'asechem, what is your occupation? Vayomeru el Paro, and they said to Paro, Ro'et son avadecha, gam anachnu, gam avoseinu. Your servants are shepherds, we as well as our forefathers. Verse 4, Vayomeru el Paro, and they said to Paro, Lagu ba'aretz banu, we have come to stay for a while in your land. Ki ein mireh latzon asher lavadecha, because there is nowhere for your servants' flocks to graze. Ki chaved hara'av be'eretz Canaan, because the famine is so severe in the land of Canaan. Va'ata, and now, yeshvu na avadecha be'eretz Goshen. Please let your servants settle in the region of Goshen. Verse 5, Vayomer Paro el Yosef lemor. Paro said to Yosef, saying, Avicha ve'achecha ba'u eilecha, your father and brothers have come to you. Verse 6, Eretz Mitzrayim lefanecha hi, the land of Egypt is before you. B'meitav ha'aretz hosheves avicha ve'esachecha, in the best part of the land settle your father and your brothers. Yeshvu be'eretz Goshen, let them settle in the land of Goshen. Ve'im yadata, and if you know, ve'yesh bam b'anshei chayil, if you know that there are capable men among them, v'samtam sarei mikneh al asherli, you may put them in charge of my own livestock. Verse 7, Vayave Yosef es Yaakov aviv. Then Yosef brought Yaakov his father, Vayamidehu lifnei Paro, and presented him to Paro. Vayivarech Yaakov es Paro, and Yaakov blessed Paro. Verse 8, Vayomer Paro el Yaakov, and Paro said to Yaakov, Kama yemei shnei chayecha, how many are the days of the years of your life? Or in other words, how old are you? Verse 9, Vayomer Yaakov el Paro, and Yaakov said to Paro, Yemei shnei migurai shloshim ma'as shana. The years of my wandering are 130. Ma'at v'ra'im hayu yemei shnei chayai. Few and bad have been the days of the years of my life. V'lo hisigu es yemei shnei chayei avosai b'mei migureihem. And I have not reached the age my fathers reached in their own wanderings. Verse 10, Vayivarech Yaakov es Paro. Yaakov blessed Paro, Vayetzei milifnei Pharaoh, and left his presence. And this encounter is a little strange. On the one hand, our rabbis interpret this, that Paro takes a look at Yaakov, he sees that he looks very old, and so asks him how old he is. But there are other commentaries that have interpreted this slightly differently. You see, they tell the story that Paro had been a young boy in a previous Pharaoh's palace, back at the time when Avraham and Sarah came down to Egypt. And the way that the palace was constructed was such that if you wanted to enter the throne chamber, you first had to pass through a very low door. And that was so that whoever would be walking into the chamber would have to be entering while bowing to the Pharaoh. The trouble is, Avraham is not going to bow for anybody. And so a miracle occurred that when he entered the throne room, the walls lifted up, allowing Avraham to pass into the throne room without having to bow. And this Pharaoh was a young boy at the time, and he sees this miracle happen, and it obviously stuck in his mind. Such that all those years later, this time we've got Yaakov coming into the throne room. Paro is now a grown man, he is the Pharaoh of Egypt, and he watches again as the walls rise up, allowing for Yaakov to be able to walk into the throne room without bowing. And so this question that we see in verse 8 of Kama Yemei Shnei Chayecha, how many are the days of the years of your life, or how old are you, is really a question of incredulity, and should be read, how old are you? I saw this same trick being pulled years ago, and it was a man who looked just like you, also an old man. And obviously Yaakov looked so similar to Avraham that when Paro sees him coming in, he just can't wrap his head around how it could be that so much time has passed, and yet this old man is doing the same miracles. It's amazing that such a tapestry can be woven by the commentaries, and such deep layers of understanding and patterns that run throughout all of Chumash can be revealed. Nevertheless, the simple explanation is that Paro was just asking Yaakov how old he is. Verse 11, Vayoshev Yosef es aviv es echav. And Yosef settled his father and brothers, Vayiten lahem achuzah be'eretz Mitzrayim. And he gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, b'meitav ha'aretz, in the best part of the land, be'eretz Ramses, in the region of Ramesses, kasher tziva Paro, just as Pharaoh had commanded. Verse 12, Vaychalkel Yosef es aviv ve'es echav. Yosef sustained his father and his brothers, there's kol beis aviv, and all of his father's household, lechem lefi hataf, with food according to the number of children. Verse 13, ve'lechem ein b'chol ha'aretz. And there was no food across the land, ki chaved harav ma'od, because the famine was so severe. Vatela eretz Mitzrayim, ve'eretz Canaan mipnei harav. And the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan became weary from hunger. Verse 14, Vayilaket Yosef es kol hakesef. Yosef collected all the money, hanimtza be'eretz Mitzrayim uve'eretz Canaan. All the money that was to be found in Egypt and in Canaan, bashever asher heim shovrim, through the provisions that they were purchasing. Vayaveh Yosef es hakesef beisa paro. And he brought all the money into Pharaoh's palace. Verse 15, Vayitom hakesef me'eretz Mitzrayim u'me'eretz Canaan. When the money in Egypt and Canaan was gone, Vayavo Chol Mitzrayim El Yosef Lemor, all the Egyptians came to Yosef saying, Havalanu lechem, v'lama namus negdecha, give us food, why should we die before your eyes? Ki afes kasef, because there is no more money left. Verse 16, Vayomer Yosef, and Yosef said, Havu miknechem, bring your livestock, ve'etna lachem b'miknechem, and I will sell you food in exchange for your livestock, im afes kasef, since there is no more money left. Verse 17, Vayaviu es miknehem el Yosef. So they brought their livestock to Yosef. Vayiten lahem Yosef lechem basusim uv'mikneh hatzon uv'mikneh habakar uv'chamorim. And he gave them food in exchange for horses, sheep, cattle, and donkeys. Vaynahalem balechem b'chol miknehem b'shana hahi. And he supplied them with food that year in exchange for all their livestock. Verse 18, Vatitom hashana hahi. That year passed. Vayavo elav b'shana hashenis, and they came to him the following year, in the second year, saying, Vayomeru lo, and they said to him, Lo nechached me Adoni, we cannot hide from my Lord, ki im tam hakesef, that the money is gone, umignei habehema el Adoni, and the livestock belongs to you. Lo nishar lifnei Adoni bilti im gviyasenu ve'admasenu, there is nothing left for my Lord except for our bodies and our land. Verse 19, Lama namus leinecha, why should we die before your eyes? Gamanachnu gamad masenu, both we and our land. Knei osanu ve'esad masenu balachem, acquire us and our land for bread. V'nihiyeh anachnu ve'ad masenu avadim lefaro, and we with our land will become slaves to Paro. V'sen zera v'nichiyeh v'lo namus v'ha'adama lo seisham, and provide seed so that we may live and not die, and the land will not become desolate. Verse 20, Vayiken Yosef es kol admas Mitzrayim lefaro. So Yosef acquired all the land of Egypt for Paro, ki machu Mitzrayim ish sadehu. Each Egyptian sold his field, ki chazak alehem hara'av, because the famine had become too much for them. Vatahi ha'aretz lefaro. So the land became Pharaoh's. Verse 21, Ve'esa'am he'eviro so le'arim. As for the people, he transferred them, town by town, miktsei gavul Mitzrayim va'ad katsehu, from one end of Egypt to the other. Verse 22, Rak ad masa kohanim lokana. The only land he did not acquire was that of the priests. Ki chok lakohanim me'es paro, since the priests received support from Pharaoh. Va'achlu es chukam asher nasan lehem paro, and they lived off their stipend that Paro had given them. Al kain lo machru es admasam, and therefore they did not have to sell their land. Verse 23, Vayome Yosef el ha'am, Yosef said to the people, Hein kanisi eschem hayom ve'es admasachem lefaro. Today I have acquired you and your land for Pharaoh. Hei lachem zera uzratem es adama. Here is seed for you to sow the land. Verse 24, V'haya batvuos unesatem chamishis lefaro. When the harvest comes, give 1/5 to Pharaoh. Va'arba hayados yihiyeh lachem, and 4/5 shall be yours. Lezera hasadeh, as seed for your fields. La'ach lachem, and as food for you. V'la'asher bavatechem, and for your households. V'la'echol tapchem, and for your children. Verse 25, Vayomeru, and they said, Heche yisanu, you have saved our lives. Nimsachen be'enei Adoni, may we find favor in the eyes of my Lord. V'hayinu avadim lefaro, we shall be slaves to Pharaoh. Verse 26, Vayasem osa Yosef lechok ad hayom hazeh. So Yosef made it a law until this day. Al admas Mitzrayim lefaro lachomesh, that 1/5 of all produce belongs to Pharaoh. Rak admas hakohanim levadam lo haisa lefaro. Only the land of the priests did not become Pharaoh's. And verse 27, which is the last verse of Parashas Vayigash, Vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz Mitzrayim be'eretz Goshen. So Yisrael settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen. Vaye'echazuva vayefru vayebu ma'od. They acquired holdings in it and were fertile and greatly increased in number. And then we continue into Parashas Vayechi at the top of page 322 and 323. Verse 28, Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim, Sheva Esrei Shana. Yaakov lived in Egypt for 17 years. Vayehi Yemei Yaakov Shnei Chayav, and the days of Yaakov, the years of his life, were Sheva Shanim V'abayim Uma'as Shana. They were 147 years. Verse 29, Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamus. The time approached for Yisrael to die. Vayikra Livno li Yosef, and he called to his son Yosef. Vayomer lo, and he said to him, Imna matzasi chen beinecha, if I found favor in your eyes, Simna yadcha tachas yirechi, place your hand under my thigh, Va'asisa imadi chesed ve'emes, and promise to deal kindly and truly with me. Al na sikbareini b'Mitzrayim, please do not bury me in Egypt. Verse 30, V'shochavti im avosai, lay me to rest with my fathers, Unasasani b'Mitzrayim, and carry me from Egypt, Ukvartani b'kforasam, and bury me where they are buried, which is Ma'aras HaMachpelah, the cave of Machpelah. Vayomar, and he said, Anochi e'esech idvarecha, I will do as you say. Verse 31, Vayomer, and he said, Yaakov said, Hishavali, swear to me, Vaishavalo, and Yosef swore to him, Vaishtachu Yisrael al Rosh HaMitah. And then Yisrael bowed at the head of his bed. And that brings us to the end of chapter 47. In chapter 48, we will read about Yaakov starting to bless his family, starting with Ephraim and Manasseh. I look forward to learning that chapter with you. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.